Alan, thanks for being here.
You got it.
You have a lot to talk about in regards to this bike. First, I'd like to tell everybody what this bike even is and what it means. And I thought it'd be best to read this article from 1991. This is American BMXer from June 1991. I'm just going to read a short piece of this article here, straight from the ELF's mouth. The prototype ELF. ELF's Single A Pro, Alan Foster, was racing at the U.S. Nationals on a very custom, unique-looking ELF frame. The dual-tube rear change stays looks similar to a bridge with two small tubes coming out from the bottom bracket. Obviously, this is another brilliant way to relieve bottom bracket flex and improve rigidness, and just makes the bike reek of trickness. ELF owner and frame designing genius Ken Pendergraft told us that Alan's frame will probably be a production frame soon. It's mainly a frame for the bigger kids, being a ½ inch longer than my Pro XL frame. How did he come up with the idea? Well, I made it to be a flex fighter. We've been testing this frame for about 2 months. I was playing with the idea for quite a while and finally had some spare time at the shop to build it out. Out of the gate, Alan says he can't tell a difference, but in the corners coming out of a turn, he can tell a difference, no flex. Alan, I have a lot of questions, but first I want to tell everyone while we're here. Folks, this is the same exact bike 34 years later. And Alan and I were chatting moments ago, thinking this is crazy. This thing, this thing literally went onto the other side of the planet, came back to us, and here it is. I'm chatting with you about it. And this is not a tribute to that bike. This is the exact same bike. And with us, the pro rider who tested the very first, what we now know of as the ELF Doublecross, Alan Foster. So Alan, before you tell your story, I want to tell a little bit of mine. I went crazy chasing this bike down, okay? I found out who had it, where it was, and a few months ago, after 3 years of searching it and trying to acquire this bike, it landed on my doorstep, and I was like a kid at Christmas. And I just kind of knew what it meant, because this bike is an icon. For one, it's a one-on-one prototype that became, like I said, as what we know of as the ELF Doublecross. So this is the very first Doublecross ever made. And in fact, there's no serial number on the bike. Later on, the ELF Doublecross became like one of the most iconic racing bikes of the 90s, right? And then what's really crazy is this bike was on the cover of BMX Plus magazine, was featured here in American BMXer, and with you writing, by the way. And here we are, full circle, it all comes together. So, and you raced this bike also at multiple nationals in 1991. We were talking about that earlier. So this bike is really special. It's iconic in itself. And yet, I don't have just one icon here, but I have two. So I wanted to get your story behind this bike, because I think we have something really special here, not just with the bike, but with you. If I could ask you a couple of questions. When was the last time, everyone wants to know, like, what the heck happened? When was the last time you saw this bike in person?
So that would be New Zealand, fall 91 in New Zealand. I gave it to the son of the family that we stayed with. Fuzzy Hall and I went on this trip, raced a little race and did some clinics in New Zealand. And at the end of the trip, I gave it to the son of the family that we stayed with. So that's the last time I saw it. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even think 34 years later that it might be in front of us.
Wow. Yet here we are. Yeah. So what's your first reaction in seeing it again after all these years?
Pretty insane, especially because at the time I didn't realize what it was. You know, it was the one prototype frame that we tested and we tried different things. I gave kind of my input. Production ended up being a little different. So I'm blown away that I went to New Zealand on the other side of the world, and Fuzzy Hall and I rode skate parks, we rode trails, we did clinics, we raced the North Island titles. It's a race that they used to bring over Americans for. And I can't believe I gave away that frame, that one-off frame. Like today, you would never give away a one-off frame. But a super cool family that we stayed with, had a great time over there. One of the best trips I've ever had, BMX trips I've ever had. Fuzzy and I got to ride so many skate parks. Got so many memories of that. I still talked to Fuzzy a couple of years ago, and we talked about how much fun we had on that trip. And and just the family that we stayed with, they made that trip. They took us everywhere. So seeing that bike again, you would never believe it. You would never believe it. When you hit me up a couple months ago, hey, I think I got this bike. I'm like, that's pretty amazing. That's very amazing.
And here it is, 34 years later, in the States again, hanging out with us. Did you have any idea what you were writing, like that this was something that could become as iconic as it's become?
Not at all. I mean, Ken Pendergraft, the owner of ELF, was very creative guy. So he was always throwing out ideas. We were talking about different things, and I was I'll call myself a struggling A pro at the time. But I loved the bars, I loved the forks, and I loved the geometry of that bike. I mean, even before I rode for ELF, I rode for a bike shop called Wheel Power, and we rode ELF frames. So I loved the geometry of the bike, and he came up with the idea, and I had this unpainted, you saw in the BMXer, an unpainted version of this, and I felt like it had a little chatter in the turn, and then they ended up going to production with it, and they changed the rear end a little bit, but it was stiffer. And think about today's, with all the monocoques and all the stuff that people are doing, and aluminum and carbon and all that people are doing today. I mean, he was a little bit ahead on trying to make a stiff, pedals to the rear hub power transfer is what we're trying to do, right? Yeah. Without making it too stiff. And they succeeded. Pretty crazy for a guy just working out of a American-made shop in Orange, California.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And they're still alive and up and running very well today, too, which is, and in the same family nonetheless, too. Yeah. It's great. So you mentioned that you had this bike at first and it didn't have any finish on it. It was a raw frame. And in fact, it's pictured there in American BMXer, where it's raw and it's got your 3-piece cranks on it. It's got all of the parts that Alan wanted on that bike, right? Yeah. And then it's featured in BMX Plus, and you and I were talking about this. We're trying to put everything together. It's featured in BMX Plus, chromed with kind of entry-level parts on it. And I kind of came up with what I thought happened there. Did you have an idea?
I mean, they would have just given me a frame, just a raw frame. I put my parts, took them off my standard ELF frame, put it on that. That's what I rode. That's what I raced at some nationals. I think Stockton, no. Lemoore was the first race that I raced it. So I raced it a little bit going into that summer. And then I was a BMX Plus test guy, and they wanted to do I don't think ELF made complete bikes at the time, but they're like, hey, we want to enter the complete bike market, so let's build it like we would sell it. Let's put 1-piece cranks and Victor pedals and Viscon seat and things like that. But it's still an American-made frame, fork, bars. But if you look at it, it's got a Pronex stem, which is American-made. It's got some American-made stuff, but it's basically what you could build and have a realistic 400-ish, 500-ish, that $100 bike, So they put that together. This is the only frame. So they took my frame and made it the test bike. And then, okay, Alan's the kid who rides for ELF now, so let's put him on ELF. And we went out to Jay's track in Simi Valley and we did a photo shoot with John Carr. And
saw those pictures of you sending it, doing some turn downs. That was all here in California.
That was at Jay's, right off the 118, I think, going ahead to Simi Valley. Jay Goucher, I believe, was his name. Pretty cool downhill. Actually, pretty big jumps. And on that cover is Fuzzy Hall, which is funny that that's the guy I went to New Zealand with. And then Brian Lopes is on that cover, who used to ride for ELF. I don't know how we all got connected on that day, but that was the photo shoot. And it was actually a little crazy turn that I don't know how we all three fit in.
It's a great picture.
Those were fun trails. Yeah. Those were legit size doubles, and it was kind of a cool downhill thing. And then you'd walk back up, kind of early day trails. You would pedal a lot, but this was kind of a downhill trail. Yeah. So it was cool.
But it's a picture I remember looking at when I was 13 years old, and I flipped through that magazine and saw pictures of the bike. And I never owned an ELF back then. But I would never forgot that double chain stay from that bike that you test rode in that magazine. And here I am, an ELF fan today. I've been racing ELF myself, and I'm just in love with the brand. I'm in love with the geometry and kind of the sex appeal that it has. And I've collected quite a few. This is definitely the build of my career, this one here, but I've probably built, I don't know, a dozen double-cross before, but
I'm blown away that you found it. Yeah. On the other side of the world that you found. I'm blown away.
Literally the other side of the planet. ELF was a small, like you said, but innovative brand, right? What do you think set them apart? Because they're still alive and up and running today. What do you think kept them alive?
I take it that they were that American-made, small batch, could make changes quick. I compare them at that time, it was like the free agents, like the free agent limo was really big, but the ELF Pro XL, and then you need your Robinson and your GTs and things like that were maybe a little mass produced, but it was literally a machine shop off the 22 in orange. You know, this was kind of a little bit before S&M was just kind of kicking in at that point, but that'd be like the S&M of today, that small American-made shop, you know, and how from working in the bike industry a little bit, how fast they can change, how fast they can right on the spot. They're just the next batch. They're making batches of 50 frames or 100 frames or whatever they're making. It's nothing like the Taiwan world we live in today.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, and they sell like hotcakes too, because everybody loves them. And I think first of all, it's nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody wants an ELF. There's like generations that have grown up looking at these bikes and enjoying them, and I think they're able to make them and kind of make everyone's wildest dreams come true still today.
They're pretty cool. Clean.
Yeah. So Alan, why do you think people still connect with these old BMX builds these days?
I mean, it's kind of like a kid in a candy store a little bit. Like when I go to Dirty Fest, you can just go up and down the row and each bike will pull out a memory. Like if you see a National Pro, you think, man, I used to have that Cruiser, or you see CW, or you see a Robinson, or you see an ELF, or you just, so maybe we're older now, but when you're a 50-year-old guy and you see that bike that's 34 years old, and you can remember the little things, or whether it's Pitbull brakes or Amy grips or whatever it may be, it just speaks to you. And you remember when you were 12 and 13 and you saved up money and you bought your first whatever, your Comp 3 tire, your Comp 2 tire. I mean, the passion that people have and the packages, how they package it together, how genuine it is. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing. If you can ever go to an old school show, I mean, that's some cool stuff.
I'm with you. I wish Dirty Fest was every month.
Yeah.
It's a little piece of history that comes back, and I feel like a kid in the candy store all the time there. So this build right here is fighting for a spot in the BMX Museum calendar. What do you hope? Let's say it's published in that calendar. Yeah. What do you hope people see feel when they see that published in that calendar?
I mean, I hope they remember, guy Ken Pendergraft that made some cool bikes, and I was riding ELFs since I was 19 probably, and that was, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So for that to be almost an identical replacement, with all the parts of everything, I mean, the UGP plate, I mean, Ron Bonner gave me that plate, had to be like 89-ish, something like that. What Ron Bonner did with UGP and connected and grew the company, I mean, this is the start of a lot of things. So to see that in a calendar, that'd be pretty cool. I've been out of BMX for a long time. So, hey, if someone remembers something a little bit and I had a little bit of part of it, that'd be super cool.
Yeah. Well, no doubt, you not only were a part of it, but you ignited a lot of things that this bike has to do with, that's for sure. And so it's exciting to see. I say the two of you, I'm personifying a bicycle here. This bike means a lot to me, and it means a lot that you came in and interviewed with me today.
If you had that much passion behind it, no problem. I'll come down and talk with you.
Well, call me crazy, but yeah, I do have that much passion about it. Maybe before we wrap up, maybe you could talk about the features of the Doublecross here, and maybe what makes this bike different from the prototype.
So from what I remember, the geometry would have been the same. The same, I don't know if it's called an XL or an XXL at the time, but I think it was a 21 1/4 top tube. I don't know what this is, but that was my same geometry. And then the idea was to be stiffer. And I don't know why he went to that plate dropout versus this. Maybe it was the socket wrench. Maybe it was one complaint I had is there was a little bit of chatter. You'd feel a little bit of skip in some turns. It's funny, Twin Palms, a famous BMX jumping spot. it's kind of a dry, really hard dirt. And I remember kind of going there and sliding out and it chattering. And that was my only comment to him. It was like, hey, maybe soften this up. I don't know how you could do that. And then he did that double thick dropout.
Yeah, it's like 3/16 thick.
A lot cleaner, a lot cleaner, maybe easier to produce, and you don't need a socket. So he fixed it.
Yeah. I think other than that, the frame geometry and I think this is what they called the XL length here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But everything else is more or less the same.
Yeah.
Especially with that iconic dual bottom chainstay there.
And when ELFs came around, I think what made ELFs and free agents grow faster is you were coming off the old school bikes that had the short top tubes and the maybe raked out head angles. Yeah. So like the ELFs and the free agents, they got a little steeper and they got a little longer front ends and they were more rideable bikes, you know? But this was the thick of BMX for me, as far as before all the big sponsorships came, before all the big Airwalk, Schwinn, all that stuff happened. This was POW House. I mean, riding your bike every day, just making no money, you know, working at a bike shop part-time. I was a East Coast Maryland kid. I came out to California with Dave Clymer and a whole crew of people, and we rented this house and we just rode bikes every day. And this time frame, this era of bikes, that was it. That was it.
Yeah. So tell us more. You stayed at the POW.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it was a house in Westminster. We became the Pros of Westminster is what it was called. But it was a bunch of East Coast guys, a couple of West Coast guys. But I mean, from Jay Lonergan to Dave Clymer, Chris Moeller, Bill Grad, Todd Lyons, Luan Cunningham. I mean, it goes on and on and on. A bunch of New York crew came. I mean, 4-bedroom house, Westminster, California, rents $1,100 a month. But if you put 11 BMXers in there, you know, we were like $108 a month at one point. Yeah. So, and it was pretty dirty, for sure dirty.
I'm sure it smelled really good.
Dirty.
Yeah.
But we had a backyard track, we had ramps, and we were a little bit different than I'll say the Gary Ellises and the Charles Townsends and those guys of that time. They were strong guys. They were big, strong guys. We were a little on the dirtier side, camping at the races. Like that Lemoore, California. I'm sure that I camped there. I camped there because we wouldn't have paid for hotels. Driving in Dave Clymer's minivan to all these races. But that's how we became riders. You know, we were all riders from the East Coast, and now we're living together and we're just riding every day and traveling to the races, sharing expenses. None of us are making any money. That was a time in my life.
Wow, I bet. Yeah. Wow. And so this bike raced at some nationals possibly by you, correct?
For sure. That it would have been, I would gonna guess probably early summer or maybe late spring of 91 is when I would have gotten it. And then, so I would have raced it. And then that BMX Plus thing would have had to been late summer, maybe. And then that New Zealand, where I took it to New Zealand, would have been, I skipped the Fall Nationals. So that would have been, October of 91. Uh-huh. And then that's when I...
Like this one described... This American BMXer says that you raced it at the Nationals in Lemoore, right?
So
which
had to be like...
That was the U.S. Nationals.
May-ish, I don't know if it was the...
April 13th and 14th,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So April of 91. So I would have had it from April of 91 till November of 91.
Yeah. So this BMX Plus issue came out August of 91.
So that picture was probably shot June-ish, July-ish
sure.
of that same year. So
then your New Zealand trip was what month?
November. So it's the Fall Nationals.
Okay.
Like Fuzzy and I had to skip the Fall Nationals to go to this North Island titles in New Zealand.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny at the time because you're like, but for someone to buy a plane ticket for you and send you over to race this race. Yeah. And that's one thing you did when you went to those overseas races. You could sell your t-shirts because they were just, being the people in New Zealand were dying for American stuff, you know? So I remember us selling grips and selling all this little stuff for a crazy amount of money, but that's how we made it work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the story goes, this bike wasn't even in the States after its birth for a full year, makes it over to New Zealand, and then this year, 2025, makes it back to the States.
That's insane. That is insane. Yeah. That is absolutely insane.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for being a part of this.
got it.
It's
Thanks,
been
Dustin.
such a pleasure. I'm glad you were able to tell the story behind this bike, and we're just kind of able to live it as the BMX community. You know, as a member of the BMX community, I'm excited about this bike, and I'm glad that we were able to document it like this.
Props to you for making it happen.
Thanks again.
You got it.